Typically when making videos, I always just sort of use the lights that are available in the room. So in the case of the videos I film in here, I just use the light in the ceiling, which contains 3 halogen bulbs, these sort of things here. They're 36 watt incandescent equivalent, so effectively like 100 watt or something in total, and they're a sort of warm colour temperature, which isn't really great for making videos. So then I also then sort of have to combine this with light coming in the window, which sort of does help, but then I can only film during the day when it's bright and it's a bit of a nightmare. So I decided to, go out and actually buy a decent lighting setup to make the videos a bit better and actually get proper lighting. So this is the set I bought. This is a cheap generic set from eBay. There's a huge variation if you look online, big variation in prices, what you get. You really just need to check eBay. So this set contains 2 softboxes, each which takes 4 bulbs in each head. These sets cost anywhere between £40 to £70 depending on what seller you buy it from. And you get different variations. You get ones with cases, ones that don't include cases. You can also get smaller sets that only have 1 bulb in each head and they can cost like £20, £30. So there's a huge variation. But no matter what seller you buy it from, they all seem to be exactly the same set. They're just branded under different names. So this was technically branded BPS, which is not a brand I've ever heard of, but it's what the eBay seller claimed it was. So we'll take a look at it all, how it all sets up, and I'll sort of go through it and we'll just sort of see what you get for a fairly cheap generic lighting set. So it comes in this sort of carry bag. It's acceptable, it's not great. The seller did say that the carry bag was a foam bag that included dividers and stuff for organising all the components. The one I got didn't actually contain that. It's always a risk when you buy sort of cheap generic stuff from eBay. They sort of substitute things and don't really tell you. I'd also look at different sellers because some of them ship straight from China. Some of them are like from sellers actually based in the UK where I am or whatever country you're in. This one I thought was from a UK seller, but it actually is a Chinese seller using a drop shipping company. So it was shipped from the UK, but it was actually the seller's actually based abroad, which means in terms of support it's a bit of a nightmare. I mean, I got the stuff and it's fine, but you get substitutions for the case and then you can't really go to them because they're not. It's not a UK based company. You can't just quickly go and they'll send you a new case. So yeah, you've got to be a bit more careful with what seller you go for. But this is what you get in the bag. So we'll go through it all and show how it's set up. So first thing you get is a couple of tripods. So these are the 2 tripod stands, one for each softbox. They're not bad. I mean, they're cheap tripods, so they are fairly flimsy, but they're not actually the worst things. They do sort of feel fairly stable when they're up, which is nice. They extend really long. I wouldn't trust them at their full extended length. They will probably fall over, but at a sort of reasonable length, they're fine. So you get 2 of those. You then get these bags, we'll take a look at in a minute. You then get 8 different bulbs. So these are each, I think, 38 watt they claim. They're compact fluorescent. And I think that for this set they claim that these are equivalent to 150 watt incandescent, which they then sort of add up and they claim this is a 1500 watt set. The wattage you see on the sets are basically the total of all the bulbs, and it uses the incandescent equivalent wattage just so they get the biggest number possible. But that's the bulb there. It's 38 watt, 1500 Kelvin colour temperature, so that's good. That's sort of daylight colour temperature, 5400 Kelvin. E27 Edison screw. This is slightly annoying in the UK because in the UK most stuff uses bayonet cap light fittings rather than Edison screw, so the bulbs are a little bit harder to get, but in other countries that's probably not an issue. The only complaint I have is that out of the box one of these bulbs was dead. I mean, I could go back to the seller and complain and try and get another one, but because of the whole drop shipping thing, it's probably going to be a bit of a nightmare. A new bulb was £7, so I just bought one. I couldn't be bothered dealing with going back to a seller and trying to argue that one of the bulbs wasn't working. They'd probably want me to return the whole set, and yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. So yeah, one bulb is dead, that one, but yeah, I'll live with it. So what else you get? So in each of these boxes, you get the actual head for the softbox. So that comes out, and then what you get here is the 4 bulb fittings, which are actually sort of ceramic, which is quite good, I suppose. I mean, it's probably fairly good for heat. These bulbs don't get that hot, but if you look on the back, it's rated up to 125 watt bulbs, 4 of them, so it could probably get quite hot. So that's obviously why they've gone for the ceramic here. This hole is for mounting an umbrella if you were using an umbrella instead. If you're using a softbox, you use these holes located around the side of it. It's got a very long cable. The cable is like a good few meters long, which is quite nice, and it, has a proper UK plug on the end. So that'll be whatever country you have that'll come with the right plug, and it looks like a proper standards compliant UK plug, which is good. A lot of cheap generic things come with plugs that they fit in a UK socket, but they're highly dangerous and not the sort of things you want to be plugging in. Whereas this actually looks acceptable, so that's okay. On the back of each softbox head, you'll find there's 2 switches to switch half the bulbs off on and off individually. So you can sort of have it at full brightness, half brightness, or nothing at all. There's also this fuse holder here, which unscrews, and that reveals a fast blow 5 amp fuse. I don't know how useful this is in the UK, because the plug itself, as you can see there, contains a 3 amp fuse. So I don't know if this will blow faster than the plug's fuse, even though it's 5 amp. At any rate, you've got a couple of fuses. It's probably more for countries that don't have fuses in the plug, where you'd actually, you would get the additional safety of having a fuse in the item itself, because these will be available in all different countries. So that's a softbox head you get. Finally, what you get is each of these bags. Everything I've sort of shown you get 2 of, one for each softbox. So you get these little bags. These contain the actual softbox components itself. So I'll show you how all this assembles later, but these are the diffusers you put on the front of the softbox. These are the 4 rods you use to assemble the softbox. I will try and do a video on how to assemble it. They basically, in a few words, they're a complete nightmare to put together. And then you actually get the softbox itself, which, as you can see, is sort of foil on the inside. So that's all the stuff you get in the box. You also get the sort of instruction manual, which is, let's just say, not the best. It's acceptable. It does help a little bit, but I did end up having to go on YouTube and find a video of a guy actually assembling it, because that made way more sense. For example, in the instructions you have, the metal brace inserts in the side hole of the lamp head by the way of diagonal, as shown picture 2 to 3. And then the pictures sort of don't really seem to show much. So yeah, the instructions are not the best. You've got the safety fuse box. That's always nice to have. I like a safety fuse. And it's a tricolour light holder, even though it's not tricolour. Well, unless you count the lights being white as having red, green and blue in them, it's not really tricolour, so yeah. Or they are characterised. But yeah, you apparently use these in meetings, do you? Okay, yeah, that's news to me. Yeah, so the instructions aren't the best, but they are sort of, they're better than nothing. And there you can see the manufacturer, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce. It doesn't sound like it's not the most reputable photographic equipment manufacturer, but it's probably fine. They haven't blown up on me yet, so yeah. Later on we might actually take it apart and see how they're constructed for electrical safety. Cool, so what I'll now do is demonstrate building this. Okay, so I'm now going to attempt to assemble one of these softboxes on video. There'll probably be a lot of jump cuts here. It's a bit of a nightmare to put these together. So we'll sort of see how easy it is and see if I can remember it. But yeah, so first thing you need is a tripod. So this unfolds and you can sort of loosen that off, and then they're quite good because they do fold up quite small, which is nice. Then you can sort of try and extend the legs out and it sort of slides down. I find, especially while you're assembling it, definitely try and make it basically as flat as you possibly can. So the legs are as wide as possible, otherwise it'll be unstable to put together. So what I now have there is the tripod. So we can sort of try and raise it up a little bit to make it a bit more useful. And there we go. So that is the tripod now fully assembled. So what we now need to do is put the light on top of this. Okay, so I now have the head itself, which is to go on top of the tripod. The tripod originally contained a sort of black cap over this. I took that off. I don't know if you're meant to, but it did, because it's now got a screw thread which doesn't screw into this, but I mean, I don't know. Probably, I don't know. So yeah, that goes on there, and then you can just screw that there. There's also a adjustment on the side there you can do, and that allows you to adjust the general tilt angle of the head, which is very good when the softbox is actually installed. So now that's there. That's the sort of head installed in the tripod. What we now need to do is install the actual softbox cover itself. So to do this, on the back of mine, it's sort of elastic. It's not all of them are. The elastic's a bit of a pain, but yeah, so it's elastic, so what you do is you need to sort of stretch that up and try and put it over the head. Which they could definitely do with making this a bit looser. You don't really need the elastic, so it's just a bit useless being there. But yes, this stretches over the top. A bit like this. Absolute nightmare. So yeah, like, unfortunately for me, because I don't do videos all the time, this will be going up and be sort of put up and taken down a lot. If you're setting this up in like a sort of studio where it's going to be up a lot, like permanently, it's probably a lot better. But in my situation where it's going up and down regularly, this is not the easiest thing to put up. You probably will get more used to it. So yeah, so that's the sort of softbox put over the head of the lamp. Okay, so now the softbox is over the fitting, we can now install the rods. So each rod has two ends. One of them is just a sort of smooth, just cylindrical end. The other one is more of a sort of peg. So yeah, that's a slightly different end. The end with the peg on it is what goes actually into the lamp itself, the other end doesn't. So what you need to do is, I'll try and show this, it's not particularly easy, is install the end without the peg into this sort of velcro bit on the corner of the softbox. Then on the corners of the light fitting, you'll find there's little holes. So what you now need to do is install this into one of those holes, which is very much easier said than done. You also find you probably need to like stand on the tripod, just sort of keep it tight enough. But there you go. These rods will bend a lot, so that's their design to. They probably don't bend as easily as they should, which is makes it a bit fiddly. So now, according to the instructions, we're to do this diagonally. You don't have to. There's various ways to do it, but we'll do it diagonally. So again, the sort of end that's more cylindrical goes into the corner of there, and then it can now go into the corner of the lamp. There. Okay. And you can see we've sort of got half a softbox. So what we now need to do is install the other two. So, presuming this is easy enough to see on camera, I can't actually see the screen on the camera usefully. Should have got the one with the reversing screen. But yeah, we can now put that in there. And once again install it in the corner. So this is when you start to bend it quite a bit. And it's a bit annoying because you can't quite see the hole you're trying to put it into, but there we go. Cool. So we've only got one more to go, so I'll try and adjust these just so they're bent a bit better. But yeah, that's starting to look a bit more like a softbox. So we can now put the final rod in, which again, stick it in the corner there, and put it in the hole in the back of the light. The last one's the hardest because you can't as easily feel around and see it, but there you go. Goes in. And there we go. So what we now have is a fully assembled softbox. Okay, so the next step now is just install all the bulbs. Just screw in. That's one of the easier parts. Okay, so now that the lamps are installed, we're now ready to put the diffusers in. So this set I got came with two different diffusers. I imagine you could probably use like one and not the other and sort of mix it about to try different things. But I'll just install them both because it's probably what you're meant to do, I don't know. So there's two different types. This is the inner one. So the inner one, as you can see, is almost like a sort of little tissue thing. It goes portrait. The whole thing is portrait, by the way, when you're assembling it, so make sure you get it the right way around. So it sort of goes portrait like that, and it's got these little Velcro things on the side that are elastic. These match up with bits of Velcro in the corners of the softbox. So what you do is you just go in and stick it onto each bit of Velcro in the corner. That's pretty easy, it's quite a neat solution. It feels reasonably solid. I've not had any of them ping off yet. With age it might start wearing out and the Velcro might get weak. Although if that happened you could probably tuck the Velcro under the rod and that would maybe keep it in a bit tighter. So that's the first level diffuser installed. Now we need to install a second diffuser, which is a bit bigger. Well, it is bigger. So that's it there. It's got sort of corners, so you just hook it over the corners of the softbox, like that, and then same down the bottom. And then there's Velcro on the sides to sort of lock it in place. So there we go. That is one of the softboxes assembled. So what I'll now do is I'll put the other one together and we'll see how well it works. Okay, so I've now assembled both softboxes and they're now both set up. So we're going to turn them on and see them work. Obviously you won't be able to judge the brightness because the camera will just swamp out when I turn them on. But One disclaimer is this one on the right is missing a bulb because obviously it's got that faulty bulb. So this one will run slightly darker than this one. It's not a big deal, they're close enough. So if we turn on that one, if we turn the other one, see they both light up. You can then control it, so if you turn off half of each of them, or you can have one slightly brighter, you can sort of control it how you want, which is pretty good. So there's a little bit more variation in the 4 bulb models. If you get ones that have a single bulb, you can only really have one brightness. So yeah, that's in there. Obviously it's quite impossible to really judge the brightness for this. So what I'll now do is I'll go and get some computers out and just do some sort of test shots using the lighting in the room as I used to use, comparing it to these, and we'll see how it works. So I thought I'd give lighting a quick test. So I've dug out a couple of computers. I've got my Next Station Turbo Colour, along with my Sun Spark Server 5. I've already done videos on these, so I'm not giving away any surprises of future videos by looking at these, but they're both quite nice machines to look at. The reason I've picked these is because one of them's beige, one of them's black, so we can sort of look how the lighting works on both sort of colours of machines basically. So I'll just do a few different shots of them both. Each shot I'll take with the lighting in the room, which is just sort of midday sort of sun coming in the window, along with the 3 halogen bulbs above, which is what I've used before. And then I'll do the same shot again using the softboxes, and I'll just sort of switch between them, and we'll just so we can get a rough idea. So yeah, here we go. So just as a sort of rough test really, I thought I'd look at what power consumption it actually has to see how accurate the bulb's 38 watt rating is. And unfortunately I think it's a little bit lower than that. So you'll see if we plug it in, that's powering up 4 bulbs. And as you can see, it's pulling about 110 watts. It sort of varies a little bit, it'll decrease as the bulbs heat up I think. So it works out about more like sort of 25 to 28 watts per bulb. So it is a bit lower. The bulbs say they're 38 watt when they're actually 25 to 28. They're still perfectly bright, but it is something to bear in mind just that they might overestimate, well, sort of exaggerate the claims of what the bulbs actually are. Obviously I'm not sure if this is a characteristic of CFL bulbs where, you know, even if it's a 38 watt bulb it might pull less than that. Although I did just try plugging in a old 11 watt Philips CFL bulb and it pulled 12 watts, so that does make me think that the wattage they claim on the bulb should be what it pulls from the wall, but it isn't. I mean, the bulbs are still perfectly bright, so I'm not complaining too much. It's just something to bear in mind. So because this is a fairly cheap generic device and it's mains powered, I thought we should probably take a look inside it and just see how it's built. So, see if it's actually, electrically safe, because, cheap mains powered things can sometimes be a bit dodgy. So there's just a bunch of screws all located around the outside here we can take out. I'd like to think it'll be okay because it's not actually got any complicated stuff in it, so if they've managed to muck it up I'd be quite impressed, because they literally need to connect the mains through the switches to the light holders. There's no power supply or anything in this, so I'd like to think it'll be fine, but yep, we'll take it apart and see. Okay, so I've removed all the screws, so now we can actually see inside it and see how this is built. Unfortunately it's a bit tricky to get into, there's not that much space to open it up, so you've sort of got to peer inside it. So I'll try and take a sort of look through and see how it's built. I'd probably call it passable. It's nothing insane, but it's not a complete death trap. So what you can see is in here, the mains comes in on these wires here. The neutral is that blue wire. It connects just into each light fitting and then just sort of hops across them all. So it goes into the first one, comes out, goes into the second one, and goes round. So that's just all common together. The live, which is the brown one, then comes out, goes into the fuse holder. The output of the fuse holder is then soldered on with this white wire, which goes up to the first switch and is then bridged across to the second switch. Now all those connections are soldered. I'd have probably rather seen them like crimped or something, but it's not a complete disaster. The switches then connect to the relevant lamp holders, so a wire comes out of each switch, goes through a sort of join here, and then goes off. So you can see this one here comes from one of the switches, comes up into this join. This is the one thing I'm not overly happy with, is how they do this join. They've put heat shrink over it, but unfortunately the heat shrink is just very loose, so it can actually it's quite easy to just slide the heat shrink back and reveal that join, which is just the wires twisted together and then soldered. I'd have rather seen some sort of proper crimp or something on that, but more importantly, I'd rather see the heat shrink sort of done properly so it can't just slip off. I mean, it does take a bit of force to do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, some of these shipped with that a bit loose and then it fell off and then you've got a sort of live wire exposed inside. I think on mine I'll actually just reinforce that with tape or something just to sort of prevent that from slipping back. They have actually earthed it, which is, I mean, decent I suppose. The earthing simply goes to the middle here. It is crimped as well, so they have crimped the earth, which they should always do. That's for the umbrella. So you can put an umbrella through this middle hole here. In the umbrella hole there's this earth terminal, which you can sort of see through the back. Is this sort of little metal plate in there. So that means if you put the metal pole in for the umbrella, it will actually earth it, which is quite important because you're effectively putting a big metal pole through something that's got live wires in it that do have kind of dodgy heat shrink on them. So I mean, at least there is earthing there. So I mean, for an electrical safety standard, I mean it's passable for a cheap device like this. It is the sort of thing that if I was getting it and it, you know, if you are electrically competent, maybe take it apart and just check it just to make sure there's nothing dodgy, because these devices can just be quite dodgily made. But I mean, it's not a complete death trap, so at least it has that going for it. So yeah, from an electrical safety standard, I'd say it's passable. So there you have it. That was a sort of quick video review thing of my new lighting kit. So yeah, they're pretty good for the price. Like, as far as just being decent lighting, there's a good colour, bright enough, these are really good. My only complaint would just be that they're a bit of a nightmare to put together. I don't know how standard that is for softboxes, they might all be like that. These can just be a bit fiddly, you know. The first time I set them up, it took like an hour to put them together. Subsequent times, you know, maybe I can do it in like 15 minutes now. It's not the end of the world. But you know, if you're planning on building these up often, setting them up, taking them down again, they're a bit fiddly. However, if you're sort of setting up a permanent studio, these would be quite good, because once you've put them together, they will just sort of stay up. You don't need to worry about it as much. So yeah, they're pretty good for the price, yeah. Obviously annoying that one bulb that they came with was dead. I mean, that's just one of these things that happens, but I can cope. So yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate and subscribe. You can also visit my website at camerongray.me and follow me on Twitter at camerongray1515. Thanks for watching.